This is Prime Sports NASCAR and Prime Sports Network. Eric Smith from RaceReviewOnline.com and CJ Redoon from RotoWire.com joining me. And guys, it's good to have you here for our playoff edition. And what an awesome race on Saturday night. And Eric, we were talking about that, about how we've been really jonesing for some good racing. And we kind of figured it was going to happen because we had had such bad racing for so long that as long as we didn't get robbed by a finish, something weird happening, and we didn't, and that's something we have to applaud NASCAR for. Not one, but two cautions. They allowed the race to go. They did not shut it down. They could have. They've done it before. Once again, NASCAR learning from their past mistakes, and it was just a great race.
Yeah, I mean, right here, 35 lead changes, 16 of the 40 drivers led at least one lap. It was thrilling from start to finish, and I questioned whether it would be at start. We talked about last week whether some of these guys that didn't need stage points would just ride in the back, and I was far from it. They battled from the drop of the green flag to the checkered flag, and I'm shocked that we only had a couple wrecks. That showed the quality of these drivers in this field too. So I was quite pleased with the how that race went from all 400 miles, or 410 it looks like it ended up being.
Yeah, because hey, NASCAR they let you go past the designated laps.
Yeah. IndyCar ends right at that stage, or that scheduled distance in NASCAR. Yeah, 410 exactly. It shows here.
And in one of those wrecks, CJ, Kyle Busch was looking like, it's funny because even though Kyle was in the lead at that moment, he's had such bad luck this year that I still didn't really feel confident that he was going to be there at the end. And then all of a sudden, Reddick pulls up, and I got to tell you, I'm surprised nobody really noticed this, but I was looking at it, and Reddick pulls up. It's sort of like you could tell he was looking. He figured, okay, if that's where Kyle is going to be, I'm okay. He starts to pull up, and just as he starts to pull up, the 20 car bumps Kyle forward. And that's the reason why there wasn't enough room. So it wasn't like there wasn't room and Reddick went there. There was room for a split second. Then the 20 car pushes Kyle at the wrong time. And this is what happens in this types of racing. So I didn't have any problem with Reddick being aggressive in that situation.
No, you're racing at the front of the field. You throw a block. I think a lot of people look down on it. Ryan Newman, especially Kyle Busch, had words to say as well. But you're right. I mean, when you're getting a push and you're coming quickly from behind, you've got less than a split second to judge behind you, looking in your mirror, whether you've got enough time to go in there or not. You're listening to your spotter. Everything's happening. So, it's one of those racing incidents that we see at Daytona and Talladega. And Kyle Busch even afterwards said, yeah, it's 2020. What can you do? It's more of the same. And it's sad for him because he looked really strong in that race, unfortunately.
All right, we have 15 minutes, a little less than 15 minutes with CJ. He's got to run. Eric and I will close out afterwards. So let's get right to it. So let's talk about this playoff format. And then later on in the week, we're going to come back on Thursday, and we'll have a little bit more time to preview the race at Darlington and have our picks and odds and all that other stuff. So that's coming up on Thursday's show. But this is just all about the playoffs. What's you have your playoff report available at racereviewonline.com, Eric, and I know you had some interesting takes there. Did you surprise yourself at all with when you look back and looked at overall who you picked to get to which round and so forth? Were you surprised at anything that you did?
Well, obviously Larson. I have him in the round of 8, but I do think if he would have ran the full season out and didn't slip up with the word he said, he probably could have been in that situation. But other than that, no. The guys that I had moving on normally I pretty well have them doing so, other than Kyle. Now I had him in the championship 4, and one of my hot takes was having him not in the championship 4 this year.
Given up on him
in 5 years. I've given up. I just feel, I don't feel like it's for a lack of effort or really he comes to the playoffs with some decent momentum. I mean, he's got 3 top 5s in his last 6, and 2 of them were Daytona, so you can't take really much away from that. And he was running up front at the time when Daytona incidents happened. But his 3 playoff points scare me compared to everybody else. That's for him that scares me. The Penske's, I have none of them coming to the championship 4, which coming
That's
through the
surprising.
season
Yeah.
at the start, I didn't expect a lot out of them this year compared to the years past. I thought maybe a solid round of 12, round of 8, maybe. And then as the season went on, I think we looked and shifted our focus to Blaney and then Keselowski. But just the way these tracks shape out and how some of the other drivers are doing, I don't have them in. So those are my two more shocking, eye-opening things. Like, whoa, I don't have Kyle Busch. It used to just be, hey, championship 4, Kyle Busch,
Oh, yeah.
and Sharpie. Now, I think that 3 playoff points is really going to be the factor against him. Or I would say, yeah, Kyle Busch, Sharpie. But I think he's going to have to win some races in the playoffs where he hasn't had to in the past. The playoff points carried him through. And he hasn't won it all this year. And he's got one win in like 45, 46 races. So, or no, it's like 48 races now. So I just don't necessarily think Kyle Busch is that lock anymore.
Okay. CJ, is there, when you're taking a look at how you have to make predictions for the playoffs, what do you look at? The tracks are obvious, but what else? What else do you look at?
The tracks are obvious. I think you've got to look at recent momentum. But then on top of that, you got to look at the guys who've had the experience of making their way through. So the ones that have been in this format before, maybe they're not the fastest guys, but they've figured out ways to advance through the rounds. And I think you've got to take that into consideration as well, because it's not going to be their first time anymore. That will have another year worth of experience. I think we saw a couple of guys coming up last year that advanced much further into the playoffs than any of us expected them to do. So that coupled with the tracks, and then I think recent momentum over the last 1.5 to 2 months is pretty much gonna be the factor in what drives you forward in these next 10 races.
All right, now I tell and by the way, you all 3 of us had Kyle, Harvick, and Hamlin
Mm-hmm.
in our preseason picks. The only difference is you guys went with Elliott your final 4. CJ, you picked Elliott to win the championship in the preseason, and I went with Blaney instead of Elliott. That was the only difference. Otherwise, we would have had the same exact 4, which just shows you that we jinxed Kyle Busch. We had to jinx somebody. So
he's the one.
Yeah, so he's the one. All right, I tell you what. Let's go through CJ's picks, and then we'll do Eric's and my picks when we close off with CJ, and obviously we'll discuss your picks here, CJ. So talk about, first of all, who do you eliminate after the round of 16? All night races. Thank goodness for that. We love Bristol, even though I think we would all love to have Bristol as the elimination round in round 8. Not Martinsville, but it's an elimination round, and that's okay. Darlington, Richmond will be snooze fest the next couple of weeks, but at least it's at night. So who you got being eliminated, CJ, in the round of 16?
Yeah, for this first round, it's not so much about Bristol. For me, it's more about the first 2 tracks. And for that reason, I've got DiBenedetto, Custer, Kurt Busch, and Austin Dillon all coming out in the first round. I think DiBenedetto and Kurt Busch could stand a chance at Bristol, but I think the first 2 races, they probably end up digging themselves too big of a hole to be able to climb out of. And they face a must-win in Bristol, which they're not going to do.
So you're going to move Bowyer and Kyle Busch, who right now are in the bottom 4. I mean, look, I think really when we look at the points here, Eric, where would you put the cutoff line where you say, yeah, it's going to take like a really bad race at least for one of these drivers to find himself in trouble? I mean, is Keselowski safe? Is Logano safe? Elliott safe?
I would say probably Logano Elliott, he's got 20 playoff points. I think that's about a race. Not granted, it's not a race. It's almost double that for a race to win, but for how those guys are running, and they're veterans now. I mean, Elliott, yes, he's still young, but he's been in here long enough. They know what they need to do. I think and you don't have a Talladega or a Roval in this first round anyways. So with 20 or more playoff points, that can buy them. That to me is you could just top 10 yourself.
So those top 5 drivers more than likely don't have to worry too much about the first round.
Yeah, I would say they pretty well. You could get the Sharpie out for them. I mean, it would have to take them wrecking 3 straight races.
Right.
And plus you got to look at too, any of those guys 12th or lower right now, or 13th or lower that need to get their way in. Other than Kyle Busch, like CJ said, I don't think any of them are going to win because you got to beat some heavy hitters to win to move on. So I don't think they have to worry about that either.
Okay.
I mean, they've got to fall considerably, and I just don't see it happening.
Round of 12, CJ, there's Vegas, Talladega, and a road course. So there's lots of intrigue with Talladega and a road course in the same round. Who will not make it past the round of 12?
Yeah, this is a round where it starts getting interesting by some of the tracks. I think the only guy that could potentially sneak out of here in my four that I have coming out would be a win in Talladega for Eric Almirola, but I'm still counting him out. So Almirola is coming out, Clint Boyer's coming out, Alex Bowman is coming out, and I say Byron does not advance past 12.
Byron, okay. So you still have Kyle Busch alive through the first couple of rounds. Okay. And he's the only driver out of those 8 in the first 2 rounds regarding points in the bottom 8, I should say, that is moving on. Just Kyle. Okay.
Yeah, and he's been a top 5 car. He doesn't have the points, so it's very dangerous for him. He can't make any mistakes, but he's been a top 5 car for the past couple of weeks.
And you know what? It's too bad Jimmy didn't get in, and I can't believe I'm even saying that after all these years, but he deserved it. Yeah, and we'll talk more about this in a little while, Eric, because we talked about it last week, the whole COVID thing, and how it really did end up knocking him out of the playoffs. And if it wasn't for a racetrack like this, a race like Daytona, if it was just another track, the way Jimmy was going, he's probably going to get himself into the playoffs. It took one of these crazy wrecks to take him out. So that's the only unfortunate thing. All right, let's go to the round of 8 then. Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville. Who will not make it out of the round of 8, CJ?
Keselowski, Logano, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott.
So
it's like a 4 Hall of Famers all out. 4 future Hall of Famers.
Yeah, this is where it gets really tough.
It
really,
is.
really tough to split. You're splitting hairs at this point.
Yep.
But I think those guys have just been a little bit more inconsistent than the 4 that I've got in the final. I do have one long shot, not long shot, but I have faith in him in the final.
So
4.
you have Harvick, Hamlin, Blaney, and Truex.
I do. And Blaney is kind of my dark horse. He showed the speed, and he's had the speed all season. He's just got to pull it together in these last 10 races. I can see him advancing to the final.
Yeah, he's 14-1.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I think he can get there.
Yeah, his odds just keep getting better and better every week. I mean, 14-1 to win the championship. All right, who's your championship winner? Is it going to be Harvick or Hamlin?
Excellent question. I'm going to go with Hamlin for his first championship. I think it's about time.
All right. And Hamlin right now is what, 3-1 to win the championship, I believe?
I believe so.
Harvick is 2-1,
yes.
I think. And Truex is
3-1.
what, 7-1 Truex. All right. And Blaney's 14-1. So those are the 4. All right, and let's see. What do you got working on for rotowire.com regarding the playoffs? Do you have anything? Are you doing a playoff preview?
Not a specific playoff preview, but we have the fantasy previews for each race coming up, and then usually in the recaps on the NASCAR Barometer after the Sunday race or Saturday night race, I do a little bit into the playoffs to talk about who's on pressure, on the verge of getting eliminated. So if you want some playoff advice, go to that one. If you want the race previews and the fantasy previews, go to the other ones, rotowire.com.
CJ, we'll talk to you on Thursday when we break down the first race at Darlington.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
CJ. All right. So what did you think about CJ's picks, Eric? Did you well, I guess the one that you disagreed the most would be Kyle Busch, since you're eliminating him in round 1.
No, well, I have in round 2.
Oh, you do have him in round 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Almirola, it'd be probably the biggest discrepancy between their two, because he's got him eliminated in, I believe, the first or second round, and I've got him eliminated in the third round. But other than that, we're pretty well, other than a few first and second round drivers, pretty similar, to be honest with you.
Okay, now let's talk about trends, championship trends based on the point system the last few years before we get into our picks. What have you noticed as far as have you noticed anything where, because I think the one thing I noticed in your report last that you posted this week was that we've had at least 3 of the final 4 from the previous year make it the next year for several years now or something like that?
Yeah, so Truex has been in there for 3 straight years. Kyle Busch has been in there for 5 straight years, and Kevin Harvick's 5 of the last 6 years himself. So those are the 3 kind of mainstays. They've been in it the last 3 years consecutively each. It's just been kind of who's been that 4th driver to battle them in it. And that 4th driver, obviously, other than Joey Logano, a couple of years ago, hasn't beat them. It just seems like those 3 with the experience getting to the championship 4 has been key. So that's one trend. And the other main trend is, oddly enough, at the champion the year before that they won the championship. So like Kyle Busch won last year. The year before, so the 2018 season, he finished 4th, made the championship 4. The guys before that, 4 winners before that, Joey Logano, he didn't even make the playoffs the year before. Martin Truex Jr. was the 11th in the standings the year before. Jimmy Johnson 10th, and Kyle Busch in 2015 was 10th the year before that. So they haven't even made it to the round of 8, the last 5 championship winners. So that is, to me, was an odd stat, even though knowing that Harvick and Busch and Truex have been mainstays in the championship 4, that 4 of the last 5 championship winners haven't made it to the round of 8, which to me was odd, which would kind of help a guy like Brad Keselowski. But I think that trend kind of ends this weekend still.
All right, well,
this year, I should say still.
Well, which drivers do fall into that category? You said Keselowski's one of them?
Keselowski be one. Trying to think from last year.
That's not finishing the year before in the top 8.
In the round of 8. Okay. They were eliminated in the first couple of rounds. So
who was eliminated last year then? You got that?
Keselowski. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But I think Keselowski was one. Boyer, Almirola didn't even make it to the round of 12 or round of 8.
How about Blaney?
Bowman, Byron. Blaney did. Blaney made it to the round. Him, Chase, Larson, and who was the 4th? Maybe Logano. Did Logano make it to the round of the championship? Oh, I've got it right here. Logano last year. Yeah, Logano. Okay, so he was the other one. So Logano, Chase, Blaney, and Kyle Larson were all eliminated in the round of 8 last year. So anybody else?
So Keselowski's the only big name that was eliminated.
Yeah, he'd be the only big name and the only realistic one that can do this, I would say, for this year.
All right, so let's talk about the round of 16 then. CJ said goodbye to DiBenedetto, Custer, Kurt Busch, and Dillon. And are you disagreeing with any of those drivers?
I've got DiBenedetto. I've got Custer, so I agree with those. But I think the 2 Hendrick guys, Byron and Bowman, are going to get eliminated this round. They don't have that many playoff points. Yeah, Byron entered kind of hot, but you look at the tracks and the playoffs for this first round, they are not strong for either of them. And I think the lack of playoff points cost them at the end of the day of getting by. Kurt is good enough at Bristol, like we talked about. I think he could get by at Darlington and just get a solid top 10, top 15 at Richmond, and he'll leapfrog them just because he's got 1 playoff point. Byron's got 7, but that's not going to get him by too long. Kyle Busch, like we talked about, yes, he's got 3 playoff points, but he'll get by. So I think Kurt and Kyle knock their way in and is going to take the 2 Hendrick guys out.
Okay, so Byron and Bowman, they're out. And that means that you still have, of course, Kyle Busch and Clint Boyer moving on, correct? And Kurt Busch.
Yep. Kurt and Austin Dillon. I got us Austin Dillon even moving on.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I was just looking at it, I guess the way the points are. But
yeah.
And really, if you look at it, not only did we say that those top 5 drivers seem to be in a safe situation for the first round, but that also opens it up for the opposite, where the 11 drivers from DiBenedetto to Truex, 14 points is not a lot of points in 3 races.
Especially with stage points. They could be made up or lost pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, all right. DiBenedetto, Custer, Byron, Bowman out. Round of 12. Who's being eliminated?
So I've got the winners being Harvick in Vegas, Logano. I think he'll win Talladega. And I got Truex in the Roval because he's top 2. Him and Elliott battle back and forth on the Rovals, it seems like. So that would eliminate Clint Boyer. Austin Dillon, I just think that he's not going to have, unless he wins Talladega, it's good. At this point, the speed's going to win out. But I got the Busch brothers out this round. I think this is where the lack of playoff points hurt them. because we know guys like, I think Almirola is going to be the last one to skate by. He'll be good at Talladega. He's typically good at Vegas. He could get a top 10. And the Roval, I think you'll see chaos, and he sneaks one out. So that's going to hurt Kurt and Kyle. I don't have them winning a playoff race before that. So their playoff points, I think, are going to remain 3-1 respectively, and they're going to get bounced. I don't think they're going to make it on because of that, because you got to look at the other drivers, the other 8 moving on. With I talked about Almirola. You got Harvick, Logano, and Truex as your winners, but then you got Keselowski, Blaney, Truex, or Elliott. They've got enough playoff points that's going to be the difference for Kyle and Kurt is playoff points.
If Martin Truex had began his streak of second and third during the playoffs, could he theoretically not win a playoff race and win the championship?
I'd say so, because he's got 14 playoff points right now, and that's just going to accumulate more, because he could get the stage points, which we know he can get, and just run through with top 5s. That's going to get him by long enough, I think, because he's close enough. He's got 14 playoff points. Chase Elliott's got 20, and Logano's got 22. So he's only 8 points. In theory, if you go that route, he's only got to make 8 points in 3 races in each round on those guys. So he can do it. So yeah, for sure.
Okay.
He could totally make it to Phoenix without winning.
And that's, of course, a scenario that NASCAR does not want to see, somebody not winning a race and winning the playoffs. But, I guess we'll get down that road if it happens, and we don't want to get down that road. All right. Who's being eliminated in the round of 8?
All right. So I've got Hamlin winning again at Kansas. He won that race last year, and he won the spring race, or spring. Granted, it was in the summer, but the first race. Kevin Harvick seems to win Texas literally every playoff race, so I got him winning again. And I got Chase Elliott stealing a win in Martinsville to get to the championship 4, which will leave one spot open between Truex, Blaney, Keselowski, Logano, and Almirola. And I just think Truex, like we talked about, the playoff points, and he's going to get enough to get by, because those are some strong tracks for him in that round. So I think he could get just top 5s, like we talked about. He could top 5 his way to the championship 4, which I think is going to happen.
So you're going to have the 3 Penske drivers and Almirola out.
They will be out in the round of 8.
All right. And so your final 4 is going to be, you're going to have 3 of the same, Harvick, Hamlin, and Truex. And then the 4th driver, who's that again? Elliott. Okay.
Elliott.
So that's the same. Yep. Is that the same as your preseason? Except for Kyle. Kyle was swapped by
I basically
Truex.
substituted. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's exactly right.
All right.
Which is weird. I don't usually have them the same, so I feel pretty good about my preseason picks then.
Okay. Let's see. And now let's go ahead and find out who you're going to pick to win the championship. Harvick's 2-1. Hamlin's 3-1. Elliott and Truex, I believe, are 7-1 right now.
Yep.
So who's your champ?
Harvick. Hard to bet against him in the desert. He just seems to always run well there. I know since the new configuration, it's kind of favored Hamlin a little bit more. But Harvick's just been so good. Him and Ronnie Childers just have worked so well together. So I think I got Kevin Harvick to win the championship again, his second one.
All right, very good. And is there anything else regarding the way that the playoffs are set that is interesting, different, compared to previous seasons?
Yeah, the tracks are definitely different. In the past, it used to have just a bunch of 1.5 mile cookie cutters. So a lot of the fans got mad. It was the same. Yeah, it's the same 10 tracks over and over. This year it's changed. I mean, you got to look at the elimination races now. Bristol, a Roval, and Martinsville. So you got 2 short tracks and a road course. Where it used to just be Texas. I think Talladega was one year, and they moved to Kansas, Texas, and last year I want to say it was like Richmond or something. No, it wasn't Richmond. It was now I'm drawing a blank, because they started Vegas, went to Richmond, and then it was like a mile. It was another 1.5 mile track. So
you know what?
I've been the Roval.
You know what? What would have seemed to make sense to me, more sense would have been if you would have just put Vegas in the round of 8 as the elimination race. Mm-hmm. And then you just stay out west with Phoenix the very next race, especially since Vegas is a better race than Martinsville, isn't it? Martinsville is not a very good race.
It wasn't until, if you remember right, this year it was.
We had a good race this year?
Yeah, that was the one they were bumping and banging. The Gibbs guys had the wrong brakes and wrong setup, and you had Kozlowski and Blaney, I think, have pit road penalties and come all the way back up and get top fives. It's this short. They went to the different short track package.
Okay,
so
let's
I
hope
think
so.
that's
Okay.
what's that'll help. Plus, Martinsville. Let's be honest. If you haven't won, like to me, I have Hamlin and Harvick winning the first two races, which arguably, hey, at that point, I hope they win, because then you get the top two playoff point guys already in. It's going to be a free-for-all. You're going to see guys, if I'm fifth coming into that race in the playoff standings, in theory, need to get in the top four, I'm just going to wreck the guy in front of me. Why would you not? Yeah. You can apologize later. Your sponsors, your team, they want you to get by.
Well, as long as you're not wrecking someone else that's trying to go to the playoffs. But even if that's the case, that's okay. But if you're wrecking somebody that's not even in contention, then who cares? Get out of the way.
No, and I think they will. I think you're going to see Martinsville race a lot like we've seen Homestead race in the years past, that just the four drivers and everybody gets out of their way. Martinsville, I think, will run that way. You're going to have your top eight all running up in the top eight, probably, because you don't want to ruin their day and wreck them, which means you're going to have guys around each other that are going to be bumping and banging for that final spot. And I think you're going to see probably some fists flying in that race. I think I would not be shocked if, and that's where I kind of question have the three Penske guys out, because none of them are afraid to use their bumper, because they're going to use it. You're going to have guys get wrecked out of the way on purpose, and maybe even teammates, to get into the championship four, because they can apologize later. It has a big lasting impact for sponsors and everything going on this year to get to the championship round. And with the short track, you're going to use the bumper because you can get there now. Last year, you couldn't get to the bumper in Martinsville because of the short track package. This year, you can. So I expect to see some fireworks there.
Well, here's what I would do. Here's another new suggestion for NASCAR to eliminate that, because you're right. It's you get to these end of the races of these playoffs, and oh wow, look, it's only the playoff drivers happen to be in the top 5 or the top 10 or whatever. And we understand that. So what I think they should try and do is maybe up, I don't know, the awards, the cash rewards for winning these races, something. Give the drivers who are not in the playoffs some sort of motivation to want to win the race as badly as the drivers that are in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they've got those tiered sponsors, and I thought about that. Like, to me, you should make it Geico or Coca-Cola or Monster Energy, Busch Beer, one of those sponsors. Pony up $1 million for a non-playoff guy to win the race. Grant, and then just let it roll to the next one. All right, now I got $2 million, and make it a big incentive. And I would say, other than Talladega, those guys are going to try to win the race, but all the other 9, hey, you got $1 million on the line. If a non-playoff guy can win the race, make it worth their while. Because you might see a smaller team like, whoa, that $1 million can mean a lot. I'm not going to get out of Brad Keselowski's way. Yeah. I want that $1 million. So I might use a different pitch strategy. Hell, we might have every non-playoff driver stay out at the end of a run, and now the playoff guys are in the back trying to move their way through, which would create drama and fun racing. So I would say $1 million. Granted, to those guys, it costs way more than $1 million to run a race. But that you just hear $1 million on the line. We see what happens in the All-Star race. Do that in the playoffs. That makes it an incentive for everybody to run hard, and they're not going to get out of the way because, like, hey, look, $1 million means a lot to me. I'm not getting out of your way, and you could try to run through me and risk you wrecking. So yeah, I'd say that would be the biggest factor to making guys race from start to finish.
And maybe what you do is you could even start it with the first race and say, okay, first race, we start it with $200,000 and it starts with Darlington. And if you don't win, it doubles to the next race. Yep. 200, 400, 600. Yep. And then if still nobody's won, then it's over $1 million by the time we get to the important races where we don't want to see just the playoff drivers. And the top 4 are 1, 2, 3, 4 the entire race at Phoenix.
Yep, because that's going to happen. If not, nobody's going to wonder. It's just
How'd that
we've
happen?
seen at Homestead.
Yeah,
these guys all of a sudden are the top 4
every
stars
year. Except for the one year that Jimmy won.
Yeah, Because to me, what's the point of having all 40 cars on the track? Because you don't get talked about, you don't get shown on TV. It's just you're just there at that point. So yeah, and they're not trying to wreck at that point. Like, hey, I don't want to take back a wrecked race car to North Carolina, and you guys have to fix it for the next couple of weeks. So they just try to get by, and I agree. If you have $1 million on the line, it's a little bit different.
Have they at all talked about maybe doing something, maybe at one of these all-star races in the next few years, where maybe you can get, I don't know, and maybe not the all-star race too. It could be at the beginning of the year at Daytona. Like, if how many cars are usually in a duel?
Well, there's 40 per race, and there's usually a duel, so 43, so 21 to 23, depending on the year.
Oh, so there's just the 2 duels, and they split it up.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and then let's see. The all-star race is what, 20 top 20 drivers usually?
About 20.
About 20.
Yeah, usually take the 16 playoff, and then 20.
All right.
Let's try to keep it at 20.
How about maybe at one of these all-star races? What I think would be a lot of fun is if they talked about, you know what, let's have a specific race that's before the all-star race, where we have like the legends out there that want to race.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jeff Gordon Jr., Tony Stewart, get them all back, and then you limit it to a certain number of laps. You know, you don't want them to be thinking about having to race a long race and so forth, but something that's short, but that's fun, and that, you know, I think it'd just be kind of cool. I think fans, especially fans, identifying with these drivers, if you can get, because everybody loves it whenever they decide that even if they want to come back, if Junior wants to come back for an Xfinity race or whatever. I just think it'd be a lot of fun if you can get these drivers all together. You know, even if it's just 10 or 15 of them, I think there's enough legendary drivers that are within the age range that it could still be pretty competitive.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea, even for like the Darlington weekend this weekend, since it's a throwback. Just let these guys run. I mean, let's be honest, they've got ties to these teams still where they can run a paint scheme with a current car and do that. I mean, I don't see a lot of them still race. They just don't race in Cup. And they get the field. I mean, in a couple of years, you could have Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., Casey Kane, if Danica wanted to come back, all your marketable people.
Yes.
And that would help, to me, draw attention. Just let them run like a 50-lap race right at the start of the TV broadcast. It gives fans something to watch while they're sitting there, hopefully in a few years or next year, able to come back to the tracks and give them something to watch before the race.
Yes.
I agree. I think it'd be an awesome idea. And I would venture to say that it'd probably be pretty easy to get their sponsors back for a race. Say, hey, I need you for one race, couple thousand, like $100,000, and you get your name on this car in an all-star race type deal with just ourselves. Yeah, I think that would be great. And it'd be at Darlington. They all like Darlington, and do it before the 500. And I think that would be an excellent idea.
Yeah, we got to get the sponsor. That's what we got to do. We can find a sponsor, and who wouldn't, as a sponsor, like a big corporation, wouldn't want to throw in a few $100,000 or something like that, donate the money to the race. They'd get a lot of publicity for it.
That might outdraw the actual race itself.
Yeah, it probably would.
People might like, well, I'd rather watch this race.
Yes.
So, yeah, it'd be a good
We'll have to work on that, Eric.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
Yes.
I have to ask some drivers. Yeah, well, hey, would you be interested in this?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe the Prime Sports and
It only takes money,
100.
Eric.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It only
It's
takes money.
the whole
Once
thing.
we come,
Yep.
we say, yeah, we got a sponsor. He's ready to fork over $200,000. That's it.
Yep.
That's
You
the
got
opener.
Track. You can do it. Yep. There
That's
you go.
your opener. Before I let you go, it was funny. I was going through Twitter after the race on, I think it was Saturday night or Sunday morning, and it's just ridiculous. It's like you get these fans, these idiotic fans that are going back and forth, like because Bubba Wallace was like in the top 5, and you get these fans talking about, hey, you know, good for Bubba Wallace for almost giving the racists a heart attack or something like that. Or, I mean, it's like just so ridiculous. Like, I don't, you know, again, because there's such a small minority of the public, these racists that don't like Bubba Wallace. And it's like all this, energy that's put into tweeting about whether Bubba, I mean, most of the people who watch NASCAR would have loved Bubba Wallace to win. So it's just so foolish.
It is. It brings him down. It just, luckily it's just a very select, small group, but they speak the loudest. And it's, like nobody NASCAR wise is rooting against him. That no, it's like, why would you not want a Richard Petty car and Bubba Wallace in the playoffs? It only helps. So there's not people out there in NASCAR that would be like, oh no, we can't have him move on. It's like that doesn't make any sense. So I just ignore them at that point. It's like they're out there. They're just looking for attention and just wanting to be racist. Or there's people that NASCAR is going down because they won't let the Confederate flag back. It's like, that's
their biggest problem right now.
Yeah, you and your 100 people down south that are mad. They really hurt because you're not watching it. Yeah, it's just crazy.
All right, so I'm going to do my championship picks. I'll send out a report between now and our show on Thursday. I need a little bit more time to put it together, and we'll talk about the race though on Thursday. And before I let you go, anything regarding the race that we just need to? Who won the race earlier this year? Well, actually, there were 2 races this year at Darlington.
There are 2, yeah, and of all people, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. They're the ones that won the 2 races. Oh, no. So I think we're in for Darlington's a tough track to win at, anyways. And those 2 dominated the regular season. They dominated Darlington.
What are the odds going to be?
May.
2-1, you think? Like the championship odds?
I looked at it earlier, actually.
No, I haven't even seen the race odds yet. That's why I'm saying. What do you think they would be?
DraftKings had them on there, and they were 3-1.
Both of them?
They both were 3-1 or 4-1. Yeah. So they're basically.
I'd be surprised if one of them was 4-1, because that would be a bargain at 4-1.
I was shocked when I saw them both. I think they're 3 1/4, plus 325 each. Yeah, so okay. I bet it rises. It's going to hover between 3 and 4-1. But Truex was 8-1. I'm like, well, he doesn't have the best history at Darlington. He's been all right. He's led laps, but he enters hot, and you can get him 8-1. Like, that's kind of you could probably choose one of the 2 and go Truex and a couple more behind him and call it a day and know that you've got a winner right there.
Do we know regarding trends with either rounds or racetracks, or just in general, of how many times a non-playoff driver does win one of these races, when it happens, or anything like that?
NASCAR usually releases that. I'll have to go back and look at my files. I want to say it's only happened, twice in the last 6 or 7 years.
Really?
Maybe even less. Yeah, and it's not common. And usually when it happens, it's obviously Talladega. So you don't get many non-playoff drivers winning non-super speedway races. So I would say, other than Talladega, the other 9 playoff races are going to be won by playoff drivers.
Okay.
That's pretty much the Sharpie guarantee. I just don't see any non-playoff driver winning on those 9 races.
And you have your reports already available, right, on your website?
Yep, the playoff feature is going to come out today. I'm going to put this link from for our video in there. That'll be out today, and then the Darlington will come out tomorrow. So they'll be out there. And
covers, you have your picks all set?
They're all set. Those are going to be posted. Since the odds came out, I saw that before the show. So I'll have that either today or tomorrow. And those who I think is going to win betting wise will be up at this time tomorrow. They'll be up.
And you did the Jimmy Johnson report you posted too. Did you post it right after the race?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I had it wrote. It was one of those it was just missing the finishing order. I had one wrote for if he did make it, and one wrote for if he didn't. And yeah, the coronavirus one, unfortunately, was the one that won out, and it went out. That it's amazing how that could hurt a driver in his playoff chances. I mean, he missed the playoffs by 6 races. If he runs in the Brickyard, or 6 points. If he races in the Brickyard, then he's going to get more than 6 points, because he's not going to finish lower than 35th, because he started 4th. But that car, if you remember right, had to go to the back because Justin Allgaier subbed for him, and Justin Allgaier got caught up in the pit road incident. Well, if Jimmy Johnson is racing, he's starting 4th, then he's in front of that, and it took out all those guys. He's in the playoffs. So that and a DNQ from this Coca-Cola 600 cost him the playoff spot, and it's a shame.
And we'll see how he races. Now, and this is it, right? So he has 10 more races to go, and then that's it.
That's it.
Maybe he's going to break the streak of non-playoff drivers to win a race.
He would be the one, but it'll be. I mean, he hasn't won since 2017. So, and I have a feeling with him being a team player, you got the Hendrick, all three of his teammates in the playoffs. He's getting the worst of the equipment in the playoffs until those guys are out. It's going to be all geared towards Chase, Byron, and Bowman, and he's just unfortunately going to get Maybe Talladega. Talladega could be it.
Could be.
Or, would be a nice storybook would be him winning Phoenix. That would be great if he can win his last race. But it'll be hard to beat Harvick and Hamlin there.
Well, he also could win Charlotte, the road course.
Yeah, the road roll. Yeah, he could definitely steal one there. So those are his two best options.
I just got a feeling he's going to win one more time. I don't know where.
He's got to.
But...
He can't go out like this. I agree. Because that's what my thing was. If he made the playoffs, he's good at Bristol. He finished the top 5 there. I can make a strong case he gets to the round of 8, if not the championship 4. He could just survive the first round. He could win Talladega or the Roval. And the third round, he's always good at Texas. I think other than Harvick, he always won that playoff race too. And Martinsville, he's great at Martinsville. I think he's won 11 times at Martinsville. If he won any of those, and well, guess what? Jimmy Johnson's in the championship 4, which would have been a great storyline. But yeah, COVID, and more than likely a false positive kept him out.
Yeah, and it's also funny. Somebody tweeted out something about, or asked him a question about whether or not he had pressure coming into the race on Saturday night. And he responded where you would think a 6-time champion would respond. How many championships did you win? 6 or 7?
7. He's tied for the most.
7-time champion is going to feel pressure about getting into a playoff in his last year. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just silly.
He played it right. I felt bad for him. I mean, he was an innocent bystander in that crash. They got hit behind, car went low, came back up. I think it was Kenseth, came back up and hit his left rear, and it was all over from there. And he was just minding his own business. He had it. He had it in the bag, and that single-handedly took him out there. But you can pinpoint the Coke 600 and getting us qualified.
Sure.
Instead of finishing second, finishing last. And the Brickyard, that false positive, which, again, I don't know 100%
if it was false positive. Sure.
But, I mean, he tested Friday of that weekend and was positive for the coronavirus. And how a couple days later,
and then he was okay.
Not have it anymore. So,
and by the way, great job by Byron to be aggressive to move into position to win that race. That was part of that crash behind him, but he did a great job. That was really where William Byron won that race.
He did, and I still would be interested in the media day stuff. Is the next 2 days over Zoom. I kind of want to get Truex's thoughts on why coming to 2 to go, when it was Byron and Bell up front, why he made it he went to the high side and around Christopher Bell. Like, why did you not push a fellow Toyota guy to the front? Because those two would have locked in tandem and went, but he went around him, and it kind of screwed him because he had no drafting help. Denny was too far back, and Byron kind of sucked back into Elliott, and Elliott pushed him, and it was game over. Yeah. So, because Christopher Bell could have been in the playoffs, which
that's true.
To me was odd. I don't know why he didn't push him. That I want to find out that that's 2 Toyotas. You had to have known that was a Toyota in front of you. They usually tell you that. Why'd you not push him? If you would have pushed him, you two would have definitely cruised. Where Elliott pushed Byron. Elliott had no interest of winning that race at that point. He was just helping his teammate, and it paid off. So
hopefully you'll get your chance one of these days. If nobody asks them, but
we'll see. I think he's on the Zoom call on Thursday.
There you go.
Yeah, Thursday. So I'm going to ask him if I could get it in. Hey, just curious at the end of Daytona why you didn't push.
Is that before the show?
I'll have to look at the timing.
Okay.
I don't know the exact time. Actually, no, I've got it right here. I can tell you exactly when Martin Truex Jr. is. He is Thursday at 1:04 p.m.
Okay, so good luck on getting a soundbite. Maybe if you get a soundbite, we could play it on the air.
Yeah, we could, because you got Hamlin 129 to 149, and then Kyle's at 306 to 326.
Okay. Well, let me know. Hopefully it works out and you get your question in.
Yeah, it will. Definitely will.
Thanks, Eric. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thank you.